Mike from around the world. How you doing tonight?
God bless you, Pastor Paul. Good to be here.
Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. 1 second. We're going to get you through the microphones. Is he through the system? All right.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're quite clear.
Okay, 1 second. We're having an audio problem here for everybody else, so we're going to fix this right now. He's coming through the phone.
Okay.
Should I just...
Leave it right there.
Okay. Mike, I'm glad you're here, and I want to ask you some questions. First of all, let me just go right to Texas for a minute. Okay, they had to shut a nuclear power plant down, and because they never winterized it. And also, this winter storm is the worst they say in Texas, in the worst storm in 100 years. You told us, it's snowing in Jerusalem today, and you told us that there was going to be all kinds of extreme weather. Places going to be cold, bitter cold like we never seen, and other places will be warm later this year where it should be cool. Is weather modification taking place at this, or is this part of the 5 waves of energy and the incoming binary system?
We have right now, we're enduring a type of atmospheric shift, believe it or not. So this is way beyond weather modification. In fact, this cold weather has crippled some of the some critical infrastructure for the United States. I don't think they would do that to themselves. But as this shift continues, Pastor Paul, we're going to see these temperature differentials. They're going to be off the scale. One note about this cold weather that is this is one big storm. The meteorologists have been breaking their necks to name 5 or 6 different storms. This was one big, huge storm with multiple arms, and it spanned the totality of the U.S. This was one big, huge storm. It was centered in Canada. The arms came down to the U.S., and it was a low-pressure system, stayed in the same general vicinity for 2.5 weeks, and that's what brought the cold air down. The low-pressure system did not move. It was one big, huge storm, and it's the first of many. So our atmospheric woes are really just beginning. And if this is an example to anybody of what the atmosphere is capable, the moisture is capable of carrying, look out when the cold weather breaks. Watch out, because that means our storms, the average rainstorm is going to drop at least 2,600 times more fall than it previously has.
Wait. 2,600 times more rain?
Yeah, about 2,600 times more. Yep. You better believe it. Because in the wintertime, the moisture that's captured in the wintertime, right, is always going to be a fraction of what is carried in the summertime with thunderstorms and things of that nature. If this type of moisture can be captured and distributed within the United States by the atmosphere, right, in about a week's time or 2 weeks' time, think about the summertime when it's far more intense. The ability for the atmosphere to hold this moisture is going to be beyond belief. And you're talking about damage. We're going to see damage this year.
So, okay, Mike, I pick myself back off the floor. I hear 2,600 times more rain. That's just insane to me. But the reason is, you're saying, is because of the change in the atmospheric pressure? Well, because you know how we've been talking. You've been telling us for about 8 years now that there's a lot of dust and things that are pushing the atmosphere. It's atmospheric compression, I think is the word you use. Are you saying that's what's causing this more moisture?
Absolutely. Our atmosphere is being inundated with particles, which makes the atmosphere heavier, right? That type of compression, topside, decreases the pressure or the altitude necessary for clouds to retain that much moisture. And just like a perfect mathematical formula over the course of years, the atmosphere has been holding more and more and more moisture. I mean, it's a steady climb, and it's growing to a rate. It's right now it seems to be exponential, but this summer is really going to tail the tale. Right now, we're seeing this winter. This snowfall all at one time, rain, snow, and ice.
Yep.
Over the totality of the U.S.
Yep.
That much moisture traveling that far in cold temperatures is unheard of. To sustain itself that much means that in the summertime, when the heat is actually introduced back into the surface of the earth, you're going to have a driver. You're going to have a driver of moisture into the clouds. The clouds are going to be much heavier than they have been, and they're going to be Here's one of the issues. Does everybody, hopefully they know what a microburst is.
Yeah.
Those things are dangerous because when you have microbursts, all that moisture just drops out of a cloud. I want you to think of a microburst the size of Texas, or the size of 3 or 4 states on the East Coast, or half of California. That would be devastating. You can't escape that. Those cloud bursts are actually, one of them actually happened during this snowstorm, but nobody ever referred to it as a microburst. They didn't refer to it as a microburst
because it was probably
ice.
Because it was more snow and ice. It was snow and ice, and it was over that from Texas all the way to West Virginia or wherever it went. You're thinking that was a microburst?
Well, not right in that vicinity. There were some areas that had high winds associated.
Okay.
Less than about 15 minutes, they had winds in excess of 100 miles an hour, straight down. They were coming from the top down, and it damaged quite a few things, but it happened in the wintertime. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
You just don't have that. So in the summertime, I want you to think of something. Think of a microburst, which is no longer a microburst. So think of a cloud burst happening the size of Texas, that size on the USA. Just think about that. That's like a weather bomb, not a real one.
And you're saying it's because we're going into this climate chaos, which is going to be the title of our next webinar. It's going to be April 23rd and 24th. Climate chaos, because it's really not global warming. It's the entire climate being radically jeopardized by atmospheric compression from the 5 waves of energy, the in and the binary system that scrapes past the Earth's solar system, and also just throw in some debris cloud of meteorites and asteroids. You just throw that in for good. That kind of helps fulfill scripture, though, some hell, fire, and brimstone I'm hearing. Mike, can I ask you a question? What do you think then the tornado? Do you expect this spring from Texas to Indiana, that entire tornado alley? Do you think it's going to be light, mild, or extreme?
No, it's not going to be light. I think it's going to be more than a few flood events. The thunderstorms are going to make people fearful. 2 years ago, I was explaining that we're reaching a point where the average thunderstorm is going to cause more fear than Hurricane Katrina. So all of them will have that same hurricane potential. You're talking about hurricane force winds manifesting in a common thunderstorm with cumulonimbus clouds that are compressed at their top levels. That's going to be devastating for a lot of folks. We're reaching a point where all coastal places of this world, people are going to start abandoning those places because of massive instabilities. Now, Pastor Paul, that's the weather phenomena and the moisture, but the heat is going to be unbearable. We don't have an infrastructure that's able to handle the heat, just as Texas. You know what? 4 weeks ago, many of us were talking about Texas. How Texas and Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, these places should prepare for extreme cold. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it after advisement. They wouldn't do it after warning. They would not do it. So, and then here comes this storm, right? That really exploits or exploited some of the weaknesses that they have. Well, some of them are weaknesses, but you're dealing with eggheads down there in Texas, really. But
Wait, now you're not talking about the whole state of Texas. You're not talking about everybody.
No, not the whole thing. You have people, I call them, those are people who like to sabotage things.
Okay.
They are embedded everywhere. And what they do is they stall wise counsel, and they resist wise counsel, and then at the people's expense. They do this all the time, which is, you have those type people all over the place.
The whole country, we got in every state. I mean, they're being strategically being planted, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, if you notice, you're going to find those type of people who like to sabotage things. And you're going to find that fight generally in Republican states, and in the southern states is where you're going to find them.
Yeah.
They love to sabotage things because they need people to fight against each other, and they will utilize politics to do it. So they just embed parties like the Republican Party to try and make everybody see it in a very strange light, which, by the way, it seems to be working right now, because there's a lot of internal feuding in the Republican Party right now, but they'll get it together. But once they kick out these factions and get their heads clear about how to go forward, but at the people's expense is the unfortunate part. And unfortunately, they're not going to prepare. They will not have preparations in place for this year. They're just simply not going to do it, Pastor Paul. So people are going to be somewhat on their own, because there is no state that will prepare for the extreme heat this year. They're just not going to do it. They're not going to do it.
Right.
And in places like India, you're looking at death. We're going to see a death rate from weather we've not ever seen before. There are going to be some real casualties. It's going to be quite extreme. And then all this will continue to happen until the humidity totally drops off to nothing. And that's when the ground structure of this world will begin to change. And the crops or the food supplies will continue to dwindle. We're already at the point where we're about to really collapse food-wise. Food supplies are down that low. With this weather phenomena coming in and doing what it's doing, Pastor Paul is just going to wipe out the other supplies. And so, that's why I said Christians, this is one of those times that if I know a lot of people missed it last time, but Christians, real ones who believe in Christ, they hold the authority and can salvage or at least shelter whatever land they're in. They can actually do that. There will be troubles, extreme troubles. Everybody ought to get ready for a very expansive war. It's coming. It's not going to be a short war. It's going to be a long one. It'll be one of those wars that really just, kind of takes the energy out of just about everything.
Let's go into that, Mike, for a second, because that was right where I was going with the question here, and that is, Iran is back on the table. Joe Biden is meeting with world leaders in Munich, Germany. The President of the United States, Biden, also made a phone call to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. First time. Bibi seems to be happy about that. He finally got the call. The questions about Iran, but it's not just Iran. What about China? What about Russia? What about a lot of factions? But right now with the Middle East, and I know there was a prisoner exchange today where Israel sent back a couple farmers that had got across the border from Syria, and Syria sent back a lady who, a Jewish lady who accidentally got over there, and so they did a peaceable citizen exchange. But do you think this thing is going to boil over with Iran and the United States and the other nations in the Middle East?
Yes, I do. In fact, even today, even the last few days, Israel has been drilling for a northern conflict, Operation Lightning Storm. They've been drilling there because they know that a northern conflict will most certainly come, and they are expending and are spending and expending a lot of personnel and equipment a lot of tactical gear and everything else to make sure that that northern border, that their troops are prepared for a real fight. The match is lit in the Middle East through these alliances. It really, what it did was it demonstrated what countries are willing to be in that Western type alliance. This angered the other countries. And Pastor Paul, my goodness, I have to say this. Folks, can I deprogram everybody for a second about
Sure, go
Iran?
ahead. Deprogram
Just
it,
for
yes.
a second.
Okay.
Now, back in 1998, going into 2000, 2001, 2, 3, 4, and 5, everybody heard, well, if Iran, we don't do anything about Iran, in 1 year, they're going to have a nuclear weapon. That was in 2005. You guys remember that?
Right.
And then it went up all the way up to 2012. You remember this? If we don't do anything, in 2 years, they're going to have a nuclear weapon. That was back in 2012. You guys remember that? Remember Israel? That was Benjamin Netanyahu and some of the other leaders. They said within a year's time, without a doubt, if we don't do anything, they're going to have a nuclear weapon. They're going to be nuclear capable. Pastor Paul, this has been years ago.
Yep.
Nobody listening to the news should ever fall for this line that they use. Well, if we don't do anything in 2 years, they're going to have a nuclear weapon. You can't do that. These guys have had a nuclear weapon. Yep. These guys have a delivery system. The problem is if they launch a nuclear weapon and they don't have enough of them, right, then somebody's going to counter that strike, and then they're going to be in trouble. They're going to cause a lot of destruction, but they themselves will be destroyed in the process. So what they're trying to do is go ahead and finish manufacturing of these other warheads. They have the delivery vehicles. They have North Korea. They've had China working on this stuff. The transports, always, they have been going to Iran. We caught them too late. These guys are stocked. They're ready to go. And something is really about to take off in the Middle East. And these guys are they're trying to convince everybody, oh, it's no big deal. We're going to solve this by diplomacy. No, they're not going to solve it by diplomacy. It's not going to work that way.
Is that why Israel knows this too? Is this why Netanyahu is adamant about doing these operations like he just did this week, where he did over the border there? He did that operation, and then he was still striking, knocking out Iranian positions in Syria. He knows. How many nukes do you think they got, Mike?
Well, when the nukes they acquired from Russia, it was three.
Okay.
Three. They had 2 launch vehicles, and the radar systems came during the time of the U.S. occupation, Charlie Wilson's wars. So to speak. That's when it came.
Yeah.
That's when they had all the gear for the radar systems or guidance systems. Then Russia stepped up the game, and they've been dealing with Russia and North Korea for a long time. They had all the scientists who are at CERN, who make all the breakthroughs at CERN. You know who they were working for? Iran.
What?
They were in Iran working for these guys. Iran had the best scientists from all over the world. Remember, the U.S. was helping Iran in a big way, right?
Yeah.
We were constantly going over there. And people are, they're just kicking back, trying to change what is reality yet again. And this is going to cost the whole world.
President Obama released billions of dollars that was frozen assets, and even flew some cash over there on a plane. We don't even know how many trips of airplanes of cash that he may have sent before that one got put on video. I mean, and now we have, Biden's back in office, and we're starting to see the same thing. They talk on one side, but they're doing another. And you're saying they have got nukes. It's a question of, do they have 5? Do they have 10? Do they have 20? Hey, isn't China helping them now also?
China's been helping them. China and Russia they've been helping. Everything Russia has, any breakthrough Russia has, Iran has access to. Remember that Iran is protected. They have air cover by Russian anti-missile systems, their early warning systems. They were just put up there in 2015, 16, and 17. And then the brand new systems they just put up there last year take care of all ground forces. Early detection radar systems. They have most of the advanced equipment and these are fortified hard camps. They have this equipment in Iran. everybody can launch anything they want to at Iran. They have hardened areas in Iran that nobody can touch, and they know this. And they can send bunker busters and everything else. They're not going to penetrate that deep into the earth to reach these places where they have these hardened caves. Saddam Hussein had some. I personally, there were some soldiers that personally went down in them. And as far as you could see aircraft. Saddam Hussein had this. It was untouched. Untouched.
So you're saying you had been under your control in Iraq during the 2003. I'm gonna guess, and so you're saying even Iraq was that sophisticated with their underground military installations?
From Operation Desert Shield, 1990, all the way to 2006, these guys had underground facilities, Pastor Paul. 3 underground airports Iraq had. And you're telling, and nobody ever hit them. With all the firepower and all the carnage that took place up top, they never touched these facilities. The order back in 1991 was to blow them in place, but they couldn't do that because they were full of blister agents. And a lot of some troops were harmed in that respect. But these places were untouched.
Were there weapons of mass destruction, Mike, that got moved over to Syria to President Assad, like we've heard?
I would say there are there are weapons all over the place. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. If civilian news reporters, if they can't find them, they're always going to say they don't exist. Here's another issue. Let's suppose I'm an American delegation who goes over to the Middle East to inspect these foreign nations, right? Now follow me on this. And I find weapons of mass destruction. I would never advertise to anybody I found them, nor to Congress or anybody else. Here's why. I don't want the enemy to know that I know where the heart of his weaponry is. And unfortunately, when you have news reporters in a combat situation, a strategic situation, they just mess up the whole thing because they want answers for everything. Well, guess what? Whatever that news reporter knows, that's what the enemy is going to know. Therefore, you have no tactical advantage in anything. Which is why in 1991, they were kicked out. News reporters were kicked out, or 1990, going from Operation Desert Shield to Storm. But they came back, and soldiers went to jail. They started to nitpick and everything else. They were killing the morale of the soldiers. Now it's so political that it's very difficult to even do anything in war. And to be honest with you, the only president who broke that barrier down was President Trump. When he was in office, he said, "Nope, leave the soldiers. Let them be soldiers.
Amen.
Leave them alone.
Amen. That's right.
Leave them alone. Let them be soldiers." And but Democrats, they have a habit of wanting to solve everything over tea, right? You can't do that. You can't do that. And they believe in their own propaganda. That's another problem. If they write a report, right, they believe in that report that they wrote. They'll say, well, this has to be true. Well, who wrote it? Well, I just wrote it. But it's true. Look at this. And they start operating by paperwork, and they'll have 17 meetings about the paperwork. They don't get anything done. No. Right? They just don't. They live in, it's almost like they've got to come to grips that this world is violent. Right? This world is violence. That would be comparable to sending police officers out in the street with flashlights and a switch. Well, what's that going to do?
Nothing.
You're going to send a police officer out with a flashlight and a switch? That's not going to do anything, because if you don't have a weapon, somebody else is going to be armed better than you, and they're going to. If there are no consequences, people will not conduct themselves in the right way. Consequences cause people not to rob banks, right? If there were no consequences for robbing a bank, there'd be some desperate Christians who would go up, well, I'm just rob it this one time. The Lord understands, but because they'll face consequences, they say, no, I can't do that. No. Well, the world is much worse. It's much worse.
Here's a question for you, Mike. And great, folks, this is Mike Around the World with us from Council Time, of course. If you haven't got, you can still get a ticket to the V conference and watch it. There's still about 75 or 70 days left or something like that. Or you can go ahead and get the DVD. Mike's in it, along with a lot of other great speakers. It was a phenomenal webinar on V. It's very important you get that. I mean, this is information that really the Christian world needs. Mike, it's obvious that a question real quick, and the Capitol has still got 6,000 National Guard troops there. They still got iron fences and razor wire. I understand there's still threats against our government, and there's always been. But how much longer do you think that these are the people who are in charge who said they don't believe we should have borders on the southern border, and they were really tear down the walls. Do they really believe that, or was that all just political jargon against the president at that time?
Well, there you go, because they are frightened. I'll tell you, they're frightened. They're scared to death.
Okay,
that's what's wrong. They're scared to death. Now, these individuals, I can understand certain arguments about the border and the morality and the immigration process and this country's, being born out of basically immigration. But nobody leaves their front door open when they go to sleep.
No,
right?
no.
Who does that?
No.
Because anybody could walk in and do whatever they want to do.
Right.
But what happened at the Capitol scared some folks. It really scared them. So they want troops there because they are scared to death. They also have personal details, protective details. They also have their families protected in the same way. But keep in mind, some of this stuff is shady. This creates a psychological standard for the people. It's only a matter of about 2 more weeks, and no one will notice the troops are there. Right? They're not going to notice. They're going to become used to it. They won't notice. I guarantee you it's going to expand from there, because we still face factions of individuals outside of government who have just parted from the government. I don't think people understand what's happening here. The United States.
So are you saying that they're going to take down the fences and everything, but these troops will be there just hidden out of the way, but they'll be there.
They're going to be there.
Okay.
They're going to be there.
Yeah.
Because if they were to take the fences down, take everything down right now, something would happen at the White House. Something would happen. They know this. And so what we face here is truly a split republic is what we face, a split republic. Right now, Pastor Paul, there are folks outside of the known government who are setting up shop in various places, who believe in a total different ideology than those in power right now. And so because of this split that's becoming wider, we're going to have some, we're going to have some severe issues from that. But there are 2 camps in America right now. America is splitting right down the middle.
Yeah.
And it's not coming together as they are trying to present, because you're facing deep moral issues, deep differences. And those folks who are standing behind their cause are not going to compromise, right? They're simply not going to compromise.
Right. Mike, let's talk about this as we go forward. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Okay, Italy's Mount Etna just exploded again. You've talked a lot about crustal displacement. The world is wobbling. There's a pole shift. I take it must be in process somehow. There's incoming meteorites and asteroids. But let's talk about, first, before we talk about the asteroids, the incoming cloud, which a lot of people have been emailing me this week. Tell us a little bit about this, volcanoes, the volcanism, the displacement. Will we see more and more of these volcanoes erupting? Why are they going to be erupting? Why is there more earthquakes coming?
Well, I think, first of all, this year we're going to see some very ancient places wake up. We're going to see some ancient places wake up. To date, under the ocean, right, so many things are activating underneath the ocean. There are volcanic ridges that scientists just, they would bet their life, stake their life on it, that these things were just rock solid now, and that no activity would ever come through them again. They are now active. The ocean floor seems to be burning in more than, a dozen places. It's causing a massive weakness in the crust of the earth. The water is hiding, right, the true dangers that we're about to face. The temperature, the water temperature, I'll give you an example. in a couple of months, something is going to happen in the ocean, and in life in the ocean is going to take a nosedive. And people are going to wonder, well, what's all this about? Why, what's happening here? Well, basically, this volcanism, which is not stopping, it's emitting gases and solids and everything else in the water. It's changing the ecosystem. It's changing. Plankton can no longer propagate like it normally does. It's going to affect some of the oil wells that are in the ocean. They're going to have to shut some of those things down because of magma. That's happened twice so far through exploratory drilling. They have actually found very, very thin spots. And so when they explore for oil, if you hit one of those, not a natural gas pocket, but if you hit one of those magma bubbles and superheated water, that's a real accident. And so they're starting to come across these things. That's a buildup, and it's not going to back down. It's not
Why
going
do
to
you
stop.
say in a couple months something's going to happen on the ocean's floor? Is there
Because it's almost like a bubble about to pop.
Okay.
Right? It's almost like a bubble. And when it pops, a lot of gases are going to be released, lots of gases, and it's going to flood the ocean with these gases. People, and then you're going to hear stories about just huge die-offs. Not only that, but a lot of deep-dwelling species will wash up on shores because the oxygen, once that gas is emitted, the O2 in the water, the very structure of the water changes, and fish can no longer, they can't process that. Very big sea creatures are going to, we have whales that are starting to wash up with their bellies cooked, or parts of their fins are totally off. Yeah. So they're trying their best to advertise to people. Yeah, whales wash up all the time, and none of them are burnt. This, that, and the other. I need to remind people that it was just 3 years ago that in California, fish were floating to the surface. They were 1.5 feet thick on the surface of the water, and all of them were cooked. They were cooked.
They were
cooked fish. Right, so there you go. That's what could cook a big school of fish like that. We know volcanism is just going crazy underneath the ocean floor.
Is it the gravitational pull, or is it the heating of the core? Again, we're back to this.
It's a combination of all, Pastor. It's a combination of all. As this secondary system, right, continues on its track inbound, right, we're going to continue to see high doses or highly charged particles being absorbed by the Earth. We're also seeing galactic cosmic rays. They're also coming in. They are really, our heliosphere is taking a big hit. They're coming in. They're affecting the Earth. They're affecting all the planets and the sun. They're supercharging the core of the Earth, supercharging the sun, supercharging all these other planets. So it's not just Earth. It is the entire solar system. All these particles come in. They are absorbed on the Earth. They're absorbed from the north and south poles. It takes it in. And when that radiation goes inside the Earth heats up. And if it heats up enough, we know that heat generated, it must dissipate. In this case, it cannot dissipate, so it starts to swell. It's almost like overcharging a lithium battery, right? You overcharge your cell phone battery, it's going to swell up. Correct? All the gases start coming out of that lithium. It's a very reactive substance. Lithium is. The Earth is the same way, and the spillover from the swelling is going to be volcanism, magma like we've not seen before, the formation of brand new islands, but also the formation or this crustal displacement event, which is caused by magma being introduced into various places, is going to cause some pretty major consistent earthquakes all over the place until our plates, like the Ring of Fire, for example, and I'm still watching South America, period, because I know when the Coast Plate, when it shifts, it's going to shift. California is done for. I know that. I don't know when this will happen. I just know that it's a lot of pressure there. They have had instruments in these places. The instruments have been totally crushed by the weight. They're supposed to take the pressures of the Earth and measure this pressure of the plates rubbing against each other. They're totally obliterated. Some of them were just pulverized to a point where they were just, it's just dust. So we know there's high pressure buildup in these plates. They will pop. They're going to pop. And just to demonstrate that to everybody, if you take a popsicle stick and put your fingernail on the popsicle stick and keep going back and back and back until you reach the edge where your fingernail is just on that popsicle stick. And then you pull it some more, that popsicle stick pokes up, right? That's our play. That's what's going to happen in California. But California is also linked to other cracks in the middle of the U.S. The safe places they said were safe in the U.S., geologists will now tell you they're not as safe as what they thought, because the structure underneath the U.S. is changing. And Yellowstone is a baby compared to what's in Italy, just so people understand this.
Okay, so Mount Etna exploded. We have this volcano. We constantly have these volcanoes going off. Stromboli, Etna, Salami. I mean, all these volcanoes are going off. Can I ask a question? Because all I ever hear from the media and from the Congress is that it's our fault, that our carbon footprint. Nobody's telling us about a binary system. There's nobody talking about hellfire and brimstone going to rain down on earth. That's from the Bible. That's for those conspiracy theorists and those preachers, and those doom and gloomers. I mean, all they ever tell us is it's our fault. We eat too much meat, too many cows. And Mike, is there anything to man causing any of this? Seriously.
Pastor, man's presence on the earth, right?
Right.
Man's presence on the earth. If the entire earth were a chocolate chip cookie,
okay,
right? Without chocolate chips, and mankind would be one chocolate chip on that cookie. Right, so if the cookie were the size of the earth, man's doings are not a consequence. Here's why we know this. When Mount St. Helens erupted, right, it put off more carbon than man can produce with all his machinery in 1,000 years. It would take 1,000 years to put off the carbon and the emissions that Mount St. Helens let loose in minutes. Now we have volcanism all over the world. You could wipe man off the face of the earth, get rid of every single car, every single microwave, everything. You can get rid of all that, and we're still going to have increased carbon emissions from natural processes.
So is the lie we're getting fed, Mike? So the lie we're getting fed is it because they don't want to tell us the truth of what's really coming, why they built the underground cities, why they're preparing for the global elitists and those who have a ticket to try to escape the coming events? They don't want to tell us the truth, so they continue to tell us a lie. It's our fault. Is that one way to control us? Is this Lucifer's? This is his plan? Is this what he's got?
That's going to go through. That's what it boils down to. It's actually Satan. You know what? I'm reminded, because I always have this warning in front of my face. Satan has a plan for all that he can get. Satan does not want to just kill us, right? If Satan were to kill a saint, he's doing that saint a favor, because that saint will go to be with the Lord. So he cannot win that way. Satan wants to corrupt the saints. That's what he wants to do. Have us turn against the living God by adopting crooked and sinful ways. That's what Satan wants us to do. One of the ways he does this is he wears us down. Global warming, just to give an example, that was initiated in 2003. We had a magnetar that exploded, of course, and took off a chunk of the atmosphere. Right after that, they had emergency meetings at the UN and all over the world concerning what this magnetar did. Global warming came out of that meeting, and what happened was the media picked it up, got it all wrong, and they said, let it go, let it go, let it go. Al Gore, he led the charge on this global warming thing. Why? Because he actually bought what the media was saying. When somebody gets a story wrong, but it's a plausible story that can actually cover for what's actually going on, they let it go. They let it go. They let people become experts in a subject that does not exist, and over the years, it becomes real to the people. There's no global warming. There is a universal warming of all the planets in the solar system. That's what's happening. Yeah. There's universal warming. Oh. Now, and another thing is this. During the industrial age, we put off far more carbon back then than we would ever put off now. But the death of things that require oxygen and everything, they're dying twice as much, and we're putting off less emissions. Right? Yeah. Because they can switch these numbers all day long. The issue is this: they're not going to stop what's coming, and they know this. They have their protected areas, but they take us and they pit us against one another with these made-up stories that they have. Because global warming would be a half-truth and mostly a lie.
All right,
what
Mike,
we
folks.
believe in, they let us believe in, so they can pit us one against the other.
All right.
And I don't fall for those tricks.
No. And so this is why we have programs like this, folks, because there is events happening to the earth. Read Isaiah 24. Read Matthew 24. Read Revelation. Read the scriptures about 2 Peter 3, how the earth is going to melt with fervent heat. Even the elements are going to burn up. Okay, so God is going to bring his wrath upon the judgment upon the world. And this is the, and we have an explanation for why, and we even have a scientific understanding why. Yet we're being fed the lie. We know the why, but they're telling you the lie. Mike, I'm going to ask you this: we've got this incoming asteroid debris field that you've been talking about.
Oh yes.
I got an email today from a prominent YouTuber. Just said, "Hey, would you just ask Mike? Did he hear anything?" Because this guy has heard from some of his sources that September may be the time of this year that a lot of this incoming debris is going to become a whole lot more noticeable. Now, I thought I remember you last week saying in the next couple months we're going to see some things, but can you confirm anything about the fall, anything about September that you may know and can share?
From how things appear to be right now, right, optically, I'm going to stress that optically, from how things look right now optically, meaning what is actually detected out there in space, the way it looks by instruments right now, we're going to see a sharp rise in incursions happening in a couple of months. It will begin in a couple of months, that sharp rise. This is from how it looks. The fact is, this debris field is inescapable. It's just inescapable.
Inescapable, meaning no way we can get through it without getting.
No, we're not going to dodge it. We're not going to dodge it. It's just too vast. It's too big. It's huge. And the piece, that 2 million mile span, is the small part of it, right? Because this is why I'm going to do have some of the images for the presentation to really convey to individuals, to people, how this thing optically looks and what they're extracting from what they can see now. Because you're looking at an event that will last more than a few years, right? By the time it's over, the surface of the earth is just going to be, it's not going to be too good, right? You're looking at a long durational event, not just, one night, some meteors pass and then it goes away. No, we're talking about this year. We start to enter into this thing in a big way, and we start seeing the small pebbles, right? Okay. We'll have meteor storms, fires start breaking out all over the place. The next year, we see bigger objects coming in. The next year, we see the atmosphere lit up a different color because of all the incursions, until we get to the point where we have a golden atmosphere, right, from all the incursions. I mean, just immense heat. And at that point, everything changes. But then the sun is going to also be affected by this. And then we have a secondary system coming in. And with a secondary system, one of the proofs of a secondary system is a sharp change in the sun's light. A sharp change. First, it gets very bright, very fast. Okay. Maybe 12 times brighter than what it has ever been. And I'm sure that everybody knows this. When they were a child, they could look at the sun. All you had to do was squint your eyes. Yeah. And you would not burn your eyes. You cannot do that now. You can't even do that with cloud cover. If you squint your eyes and look at the sun, you're in big trouble. The radiation from the sun gives a type of tickling to your skin. It is penetrating your skin. That means our atmosphere has changed, because the atmosphere filters out the light from the sun. This is why when they spray stuff in the atmosphere, which this began in World War II, right? Putting those small aluminum particles in the atmosphere, and HAARP was made and everything else for this.
Chemtrails? Are you saying chemtrails started in World War II?
Absolutely. In World War II, that's when it started. It's not something recent. Pilots know it. They know what they don't actually know the contents of what they're spraying, but they agree right? To flip the switch when they're flying. Well, now they're remote, so they don't have to flip anything. It is done based upon a computer that monitors the atmosphere of the Earth, and wherever these aircraft are, that computer system will turn on and start releasing particles in the atmosphere. These are heavy metals in the atmosphere, and yes, they hurt people. You know, they hurt people, but they say the pros outweigh the cons in this, because if we didn't have that, most of us would be burning up already. So I'm about to say something, Pastor Paul. Here it is. You ready?
I'm ready.
What mankind has gotten good at, and I hate to tell people this, and this is why there's such a contradiction in timing. Mankind has actually gotten good at stalling the inevitable. Without the chemtrails, the surface of the Earth would be dead by now. Without the chemtrails, it will be dead. And if you look back in the years of 2011 and you just acknowledge how much they spray the atmosphere, you could equate how many tons of particles they dropped into the atmosphere. We're talking about tons of particles to reflect the light. Without that reflection, that small degree of reflection, the surface of the Earth would be dead. Here's the issue, though. Because of an atmospheric issue is going to affect what's happening to aircraft, right? Last time I was talking about there's something in the atmosphere, some bubbles. They're like bubbles.
Yeah, yes.
And it's causing problems with aircraft. It's almost like a vacuum in the atmosphere, these little bubbles. I suspect these bubbles are going to increase, which means there are going to be more accidents with aircraft.
More planes falling out of the sky. More planes.
That's right. And it won't be normal. It'll almost be like, because of damage that the FAA investigates, you're going to notice that the equipment just simply stopped, right? Calibration is not going to fix it or anything else. Helicopter pilots are experiencing a phenomenon. They're flying, and all of a sudden they drop. Their vertical speed just increases enormously, and they drop in altitude within seconds. That is beyond the norm, as though they hit a vacuum in the atmosphere, as though something just sucked the particles out of the atmosphere, and there's no friction enough to keep that helicopter airborne. This is going to start happening all over the place. I suspect what that is, in the outer portions of our atmosphere with the magnetosphere, a phenomena is beginning to form, and it has to do with electromagnetism and heat and radiation, and it's causing parts of the atmosphere to be evacuated very quickly in spontaneous parts. This will begin to happen all over the place, I suspect.
You think that's why they're trying to slow down the air travel now? I mean, we're using the COVID thing and all these new changes.
It could be. Yeah, don't get me started on COVID-19.
No, let's not start. I don't want to chance it tonight with the powers that be. But let me just say this, Mike, as we look at things that are happening, and as you did a great job talking about what's going on as it relates to that in the webinar V that was rudely interrupted by some of the censorship, but that will not happen in the next one. You're going to bring us a presentation, though, for the Climate Chaos.
That's right.
Webinar that's going to help us understand. Because, this binary system. Now, look, people have been called conspiracy theorists. I've been thrown out the window 2 or 3 times over this Planet X, Nibiru, whatever you want to call it. And all of a sudden now, we keep getting this real slow disclosure of something happening out there. Is that planet? We're not sure if that's planet number 9, but we found another body out there on the edge of the solar system. So, Mike, when are they going to break the news that there is a binary system and it is going to radically change our solar system?
Well, let me ask you a question. Can they actually do that?
No, because your answer will be no. Because if everyone knows that all hell's going to break loose, then it's going to break loose early because man's going to go off the rails.
That's right. And they lose power. They lose their power to protect their own skins.
Yeah.
You have to get here's their mindset, Pastor Paul. Here's what they believe. They believe that they are true royalty, number one. They believe they have a divine right to have their children inherit the earth. This is what they believe. They believe they're going to rule and reign 1,000 years. that they have the promise of the Mayans. I'm just telling you what they believe.
I know.
So they protect their own families, and they're willing to kill all of us. We're subjects to them. We really don't matter. They engage us to keep us occupied.
We're deplorable. We're the deplorables. Right. We're the deplorables.
Their master won't permit that. Anyway, so they're going to save their own skins. If a message came out and somebody told the truth about the binary system too early, it would corrupt, it would just mess up all their plans. They wouldn't be able to keep their bloodlines alive because it would be too much chaos upon the earth. So they will never do that. They're going to deny it. The whole atmosphere could cave in, and you could say, well, what do you call that? Look, the atmosphere is missing. Half the earth is on fire. Right? We're all about to die in 2 minutes. What is that? Well, they'll say, well, it's not a binary system. That's not Nibiru. That's a big meteor. They'll call it swamp gas or something. I don't know.
And is that why the body of Christ is being targeted now, and preachers and those of us who sharing the good news of Jesus Christ? Because we're saying Christ is coming back. Okay, we're saying the second coming of Jesus Christ is imminent, and that with it comes the same day that Lot led out of Sodom, the fire fell and consumed the city. So shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. Okay? We're saying the earth will not survive long term. There will be a 1,000-year reign with Christ, but ultimately the world still comes to an end. They can't deal with us. So do they got to silence us? Are they afraid of our message that Jesus is the only hope, really?
That's a painful reminder, is what that is. Their promise, they openly have a promise from Lucifer, openly. And so Christ is what they hate. It's kind of like when you talk to an individual and you bring up the name Jesus Christ and their facial features change. They get hateful.
Yeah.
You have a lot of people like that in leadership, unfortunately. They change. They say it's nonsense. They get angry. They don't want to talk about it. And they worship Lucifer, just like some of the open Masons now. Masonry is just opening wide up, and they will tell you of their chants. They will tell you that they're virtuous and wholesome and this, that, and the other, and that they, if it weren't for Satan at the beginning to set them free from a evil God, right, and all this nonsense, this is what these guys believe in. Now, this is because they actually believe it. They are doing everything they do passionately. So there's a slight issue with our observation of them. Sometimes we forget that they're just as passionate behind Lucifer as we are about Christ.
Whoa!
So that means us Christians will always be targets of Lucifer, correct? That means we're always going to be targets of them. So we can't afford to allow their rhetoric to divide us. Pastor Paul, this division thing is so important.
Right.
It is so important that Christians overcome this. There's a war. It's surely going to begin. We're going to have atmospheric troubles. That's going to begin. There's no escaping half the stuff that's coming. Right? And the other half we don't want to hear about. And we haven't even touched the supernatural components of the end days.
No.
Not ever have we touched that subject. And we're going to be dealing with things on multiple fronts. And it's our time. I mean, if Christians don't become authentic, truly authentic, despite what they're going through. Right? At one part in the Bible, it says, everything you're going through, just suffer it. Suffer it.
Yeah.
Because we forget this is not our paradise. This is not our permanent home. All this is going to be over in a moment. It's going to be gone in a moment. We cannot do this over again. So let's get it right now. Right?
Amen.
This is a one-shot deal. We cannot do it again.
We're not going to get another chance, Mike. You're right,
everything
Mike.
we're doing right now makes a difference for all. We still have brothers and sisters in the middle of these knuckleheads out there, and they have to see your light. They recognize your light. They don't recognize anybody else's light. They see your light. But if we don't stand up with integrity and truth and spirit, they can't see our light. And if they don't see our light, they're going to remain hopeless, because Christ is still in the business of salvation, of saving souls.
Amen. Mike, people are screaming in the chat room. Can you tell us, Mike, when does Nibiru arrive? I know it don't hit the earth, but is that not a worry anymore? Are you more concerned about the debris field coming from Nibiru's, from Planet X, or the binary system?
This system, Pastor Paul, it's already begun. It's already begun.
Yeah.
It's going to be more and more troublesome. The signs of this sun will show by way It's already showing by way of the weather. All the planets are experiencing, but in a notable way, we're going to notice some things this year. We will. Listen, I can't even say right now. I know a lot of people have confidence in next year, possibly. I do not have a confidence in next year. I've never been like this before. There's always been, I have always been able to say, yeah, I'm going to be here tomorrow. Or, yeah, you know, we'll make plans for a couple months. I can't do that anymore. I can't do that for this coming year. 2022, I can't do that. It's almost like an awful curtain is about to be opened that none of us are truly ready for. Nevertheless, we're going to have to endure it. But
you're mentioning 2 months. Now, twice tonight, you've mentioned in 2 months the ocean floor, something major is going to happen on the ocean floor. And in 2 months, there's going to be an incursion of almost like pebbles. It's the beginning of the debris field, debris cloud. So I'm sensing in 2 months, apparently there must be a coalition there. What's coming must be also affecting the core of the earth, the magma that's rising. Am I correct?
All of it's tied together, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, Pastor Paul, that's optically based on what we see right now, because that could change abruptly based upon new,
Yeah, so folks, don't go home tonight. There's almost 7,000 people here. Don't go home tonight and say, if in 2 months, an asteroid didn't smash your neighbor's house next door. Don't say he's a false prophet. First of all, Mike, stop prophesying. He's giving you information from intelligence information that he's trying his best to share with us. Has done this for 8 years without breaking classification. And so, relax. Take a deep breath and be thankful. If it's 3 months, be thankful if it's 3 years. But I'm hearing you say, Mike, don't be betting on that, because it looks like things are changing. I'm just here to say every time I do a broadcast, I wonder if this is my last one. Yeah, I actually mean that.
Exactly.
For 2 reasons or 3 reasons. One, first of all, will the Lord come and get me? Number 2, am I going to die? Number 3, are they going to arrest me? Okay? Which of the 3? I don't care. Don't make me a bit of difference. I've already made my mind up. I'm going all the way. Paul said, if you don't suffer with him, you can't reign with me. Okay?
That's right.
Some folks are afraid of a little pain. Then you don't want to get on this train that I'm on, and that's headed to glory, because this is going to be this is a highway that is going to go carving right through the gates of hell to get to heaven. We're doing it right now on this earth, and that might be a song, Israel. I'm driving through the gates of hell to get to heaven. But seriously, Mike, is that what you're saying, that we've got to get stronger?
Absolutely, because you know what? I still maintain that we're not ready.
No.
So long as we can nitpick at each other, we're not ready.
Right.
We're not ready. We're not ready for the big stuff. But the day that the world can no longer make us look sideways at our brother and sister, then we'll be ready.
Amen.
And we can only do that being fully in Christ Jesus.
Amen.
We can't do that by intellect. We can't do that by any educational system or anything else. We can only do that by Christ and by the truth of the Spirit. That's
Amen.
the only way that can be done. And we all know that happens by the Word. It all happens by the Word.
Amen.
So
we got to work together, Mike. You and I have been saying this for 8 years now, that the body of Christ has to work together. We got to pull together. And don't let doctrine and small things and man problems, let's not let that become a huge rips in between us. Guys, we got a common enemy, Lucifer himself, the beast kingdom, the end times, and the body of Christ needs each other. Let's patch some stuff up, okay? I've been having some conversation with some folks, patching stuff up, because it's not worth it. I'll take the blame. Let's get on the right page together. Let's humble ourselves. Just say, okay, it's my fault. Let's get on. Let's pull together, because we ain't got no choice. Mike, what's going to happen? Are we going to be okay between now and next Thursday?
Well, besides the people problem that is rising, you know what? The people problem is going to be a big deal for us.
Yep.
But keep your guards up regarding war. A war cry is very close. It's very close, and things can be triggered quite abruptly.
I don't even want to ask who the war
keep everybody lifted up in prayer.
Should we worried about China any on that? Guards.
Well,
concerning...
China's untrustworthy. They're in the spotlight right now. They're going to be in the spotlight even bigger because, once they start opening up that can, China's going to be all over the place. But the war cry, Pastor Paul, is going to be real. This war cry is going to be real. It's not going to be bluster. It's going to be real. The threats will be heard. So nobody lose their cool over it. And try not to jump to conclusions because all of us are going to see everything manifest. But I tell you this, when this stuff begins, many of us will pray and say, Lord, I wish I would not have taken my time for granted. Because we won't go back and take a break. You can't take a break from the end times. You can't do that.
No.
You can't do that. And we deceive ourselves if we think we can. So sincerity and integrity is of the utmost importance.
Work while it's day, folks. When night comes, no man can work. Mike,
Amen.
Next Thursday night, I'll see you, Lord willing, and keep up the good work, brother. Let's keep working together.
God bless you, Pastor Paul.
Amen.
I'll see you then.
All right. God bless, brother. Amen.
God bless.